Greetings. Hey, it's Susie Q. We're going to get right to the work. Happy fun day, whatever day. Today it's Sunday, but it could be fun day any day of the week. All right, so let's see what we got. Today we began to break down attraction, 41 questions. Today is question number 24, can be found via podcast and video at YouTube channel Holistic Healing Community by Susie Juravich. Do subscribe to follow this complimentary offering of how to tune into attracting your desired goal intent or juicy, groovy new vibe. So today is question number 24. What is a strong belief that you already have and has been quiet for quite some time? Whew. All right, so I did a podcast this morning before I went to church. That felt pretty juicy. Well, it's kind of later in the day, and normally I'm in the RV kind of, I don't know, for maybe a couple hours every day because I can be quiet. Well, actually, I can be as loud as I want and say whatever I want because inside there's other people, and I don't want to be, in their way or anything like that. So, but today's been a great day. I just want to give you a big report about what's been quiet inside of me is my juicy self. This morning's podcast really was remembrances of different things, when I was real alive with being out in nature, where it just was nothing that I planned to do. It just was part of my childhood. And so that's something that really brings me into a beautiful flow. And it's something that's been kind of quiet. It's always been present in my life, but now it's like super pronounced for me. And so I'll just go over a few things that were in the podcast. But basically, it was as a little bitty kid, I was very, very young. And when I really began to really tune into nature, okay? And it was really beautiful because a lot of times I'd just go out in the front yard and there was this like a pine, I think it was like a pine tree that was out in the front of the front yard, and I would lay in the grass and I would look up and look at the bark on the tree, and then I would feel the grass underneath me, and just really tune into that, feel and looking at the bark, looking at anything that's blowing from the wind, whether it's the trees or the pine needles that were present around me or coming down. And then also what I really loved was tuning in and, laying on the ground, looking up at the tree, and then really beginning to look at the sky. And that became, the beginning of my great love affair with sky gazing or stargazing. And it was beautiful. I know you've done this probably yourself, is just to lay in the grass and get real connected there and grounded, and then look up at the sky and watch the clouds going by. And so as a little bitty kid, I would always find all these different shapes of animals and people, and faces were always coming in with the clouds. And, so that was really a beautiful memory. Another one I talked about this morning about something that's been quiet maybe and is kind of ready to, to reemerge, is also when I was a little girl, there was a place right down the street, where we would go crawdadding. So my brother and I, we would make some little crawdad fishing poles, and so we get some sticks and some safety pins and maybe some thread. We'd go in there and snatch a little bit of raw bacon, and then we would take our fishing poles down to the crawdad hole. We'd have a bucket, and so we would go crawdadding. No crawdads were harmed during this playful time. That's our disclaimer. Anyway, and there was another thing too about, I don't talk too much about the past only because I'm more future oriented, but this actually is talking about what is something that's been quiet for a while. So another idea that I did or thing I did was, I lived really close to the Buffalo Bayou, and I found ways to kind of get to the Buffalo Bayou. So it was like finding holes in fences and things like that, and then going down there. And I would go by myself. I was pretty young when I did a lot of this exploring. And so I would go down to the Buffalo Bayou, and I'd be by myself, and I would just sit by the water's edge and just kind of notice what I was feeling and seeing. And I was really very much connected with nature even then. And what I really loved too is I would transplant some ferns. So ferns have always been a big part of my about my love of plant life. For me, fern always means that there's a source of water. So that was really neat. I would dig up a fern and be real gentle with it, keep the root system there, and then I would go home and then I would plant it in the ground and watch it grow. And that felt really great as a little kid, to go out there and seek what I wanted to, bring home and then create more beauty where I lived by sharing the fern and transplanting it gently. And then what's funny too is I didn't put this in the podcast this morning, but even when I was selling ranches out in the Texas Hill Country, so I was like, I guess I was called the dirt chick back then. But that went right along with what's been quite in me, is I love being out in nature. So for me to walk land and walk ranches and sell ranches and do all that, that really was me connecting with nature. It was such a big part of my life. But that fern kept coming up again, so whenever I was out, had an opportunity to market some land or a ranch, I would always ask the owner, is there any source of water there, because water is super sexy and pretty easy to sell if we got any level of water. But what I found is that anytime we would go through and find any fern on that ranch or on that land, then there was a constant drip. And that was enough for me to sex up that ad, to really bring it home that there is a water source here. Anyway, and that was one ranch that we were selling that had two canyon heads, and then there were these canyons below, and that's where that fern was growing on the sides of those canyons, and it was just really beautiful. And it didn't look like there was a ton of water, but it was moist, and that's where the fern was growing. So I love that. And really tuning into getting back into whatever it is, like what is it that's something inside of you that makes you feel real in the flow that you haven't really been doing much lately. Maybe it's like for me, I'm here south of Phoenix and really connecting in with nature in a lovely way. It's just really different than living near the coast, and I'm kind of like stoked about all of the experiences I'm having, and all the scenery and the different plant life, and there's just so much there. And I'm fairly intuitive, so I have some abilities that I work with energetically when I do my records and things. And one of the things that I'm really feeling about here, so as you're tuning into like, what are you, wishing to bring back into your life that's been kind of quiet, what I've found here in this desert land is that the desert has kind of this kind of blank slate of just kind of neutral shade. There are some cactus and, different types of foliage and things here, but for the most part, it's pretty a neutral shade of beige or brown. And it seems to be very barren and not as interesting as like the Texas Hill Country and these different places where there's tons of color and everything. But I have to say, as I'm connecting here with this beautiful desert land and the desert soil and the desert feeling, I mean, I don't even like lay out by the sun anymore, but I'm just always kissed by the sun here, because anytime you walk anywhere, you're getting a little bit of kissed by the sun. But I want to just let you be open to the idea that what our eyes can see is only one expression of nature itself. There's so much more depth in this nature. So as I look out and I see just a bunch of barren land and the soil or the sand that's there, and we have huge sandstorms. I've never been in that before, but now I've been in two. But just be open to the idea that as you awaken something inside of you that has been quiet, and it's where that place of flow is that for me to be in this desert here and just to be imagining that, this planet is today. I think we're celebrating Earth Day. I think today may be Earth Day. I went and did some. People are celebrating Earth Day the last few days here, and you really just celebrating this planet and just knowing the lineage and the years of being here and being in support of humans and all different kinds of species that are here and plant life, just all of this life that's here, that things change on the surface of our beautiful planet. So as I look out over the desert and I look at this barren, I just have to imagine that there was vibrancy here, even in the desert. So as we have layers and layers of sand here, of course we have the beautiful mountains as well, that I would have to believe that the indigenous people here had a vibrant life at one time where it was totally different than it is today. So as I look at the barrenness, I know that there is inside of the soil, inside of the land that is here, that there is a rich depth of memory on a cellular level, even for the planet, that there's so much more here than meets the eye. And that's when you start really opening up your heart space and going, feeling into that. So I just see each one of you that's listening, really kind of tuning in and kind of asking yourself like these questions like, is there something inside of me that's been a little bit quiet, or my source of inspiration is fed and breathe life into that? Is there something that I used to do or that you used to do that really made you just go, I feel like painting, I feel like singing, I feel like creating, I feel like planting. Just notice, what in the past. Okay, so we're talking about the past. Again, Susie's not a big past person, but looking at something that's been quiet or dormant for a while. And just revisiting that. Is there something inside of you that has changed because of circumstances? Maybe you just got to really buckle down. I call this adulting. Sometimes I got to do my adulting. Yeah. But just notice in your life when you were in a tremendous amount of flow, what you were doing that really brought you pleasure. Because we find no matter what you're trying to attract, trying means looking good while failing. So I'm going to erase that. Blah, 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 gone. Okay. While you are in a process of attracting things into your life, and it's usually 3 categories. It's like a relationship. I gotta get a relationship. Second one is good health, attracting better health, attracting other things to do to make my body sizzle. I want it sizzling and popping and feeling all shiny. And then the third one is just abundance in particular, an abundance of happiness, So when we're in this abundance of being in that space of happiness, oh my gosh, your vibe is rising and rising and rising and rising. So when you're in that place of abundant happiness and beating of the heart, love in the heart, okay, and expressed out, this is a beautiful place, a beautiful frequency to surf in, yeah, because it's, what I'm going to say? Because it's juicy and it feels good, and that's just a high vibe and spot. So just tune into things that have worked for you in the past that made you feel good, that raised your vibration, and that attracted all the stuff that you just didn't even know was possible. And bam, bam, there it is. Nature's a good place to start. Simple. You just go outside, open a window, take a look outside. If you're driving, pull over, get into a safe spot, look around, look around, look around. Feel into what's around you. Breathe that in. Breathe in that awesome, awesome air. We can all use a heck of a lot more prana in our system. I don't know. I'm like storing prana, storing life force all the time. So, with that being said, I see you in your full radiance. And I see you happy and joyful. I see you high vibing all the time. And I see when it's in absence of high vibing that you are looking out for more things in nature to get you back in your favorite groove thing. And I see you doing it now. Have a beautiful day and may you be blessed.